resilience, for example, you might not have that. You might not have it mentally, and it starts physically. You go to the gym and you're like, yeah, I got to push myself. You don't realize what you're doing up here to make it happen out here. And then over time, you become consistent and you're building that resiliency, both physically and mentally, and it starts to translate in other aspects of your life.
You are now tuning in to the Relentless Project. Real people, real stories, real life.
You have patches, like you keep patches. And I brought you something.
Hey, I love gifts. I love gifts because we'll just start with that.
Yeah.
You know what a challenge coin is.
I know what a challenge coin is.
Being in the military, and that is the Relentless Project challenge coin.
Dude, I appreciate it, man.
So hang it on your wall or something. Put it in your pocket when you're competing this weekend. You got a little pocket. You got a little pocket there you can put.
No, it had to like do some suspect shit. Squeeze between the cheeks. Hold on to it.
That'll help with the
keep the glutes tight.
Yeah. Well, brother, I appreciate you for coming all the way to Pittsburgh. Well, you're going to be in Pittsburgh anyway, but to come on the Relentless Project. This is the one with Dom Carter.
Yeah, I appreciate it having me, man. This is exciting. It's a little surreal for me. Never saw an opportunity like this coming, so I'm excited to be here. I've watched your content. Oh, obviously I know Dave.
Okay, that's a small world.
Yeah. So the theme is fitting.
So it's always cool when it's someone I've had on and they come up to me with like, you need to have this dude on or this person on, and I'm always like, yeah, sure. Like, who is it? He's like, Dom. I'm like, okay, I don't know who that is. Pulls up it starts going off about you, bro. And I'm like, dude, if you're talking about this dude like this, yeah. And I was like, how do we do this? You want to reach out? Do I reach out? He's like, dude, trust me, just reach out. I was like, what's the worst you can say? No.
Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. Yeah, I had a lot of life in the short span of life that I've had, I think, that tends to interest people. And then they think, I look at it as, this is just my life. So to me, it's normal. But I look back and when we had messaged back and forth and I'm looking at stuff, I'm like, man, I guess I have done a little bit more than I thought.
When I send you those talking points, you look at it like, this about me?
Yeah.
It's always interesting. People are like, I don't know what to talk about. I'm like, I got 1,000 things I could talk to you about. Yeah. Just all you got to do is respond and answer questions because I'm into like, I love this because this is me just trying to get to know you. Yeah. And in doing that, everyone who's listening and watching gets to do that. So that's why I find it cool. It's not, I don't like to sit here and, hey, what did you do in this date? What is it? It's like, I genuinely want to get to know you. So when I asked, I like the first thing I like to do is get people to understand who you are, where you come, and then we'll get into like, what you're doing now, why you're doing it, what keeps you doing it, right? Because competing is a whole different level than going to the gym, which is a level in itself, right? There's people who go to the gym, there's people who take it serious, and then there's people who make it a competition. It's pretty much like you implied. There's levels to it, right? There's the gym bro and the kind of the gym rat that's weekend warrior type deal, and then it just levels up from there. And it's interesting, especially when you start opening that in terms of the coaching aspect, and you have clients who are just lifestyle, general health versus competitors. And a lot of times I'm seeing there's a realization as they're making progress from, I just want to get healthy to, hey, you're a bodybuilder. And the next thing you know, they're thinking about doing something that they never thought they could. And it's interesting just to see that transition. And it doesn't always happen, and it's not something that needs to happen. But they find out very quickly there's levels to this. You know where else I see that at? In jiu-jitsu or an MMA gym, right? Yeah. You get the people coming, I just want to try it out, maybe learn some self-defense. Yeah. And then that itch starts happening. Next thing you know, they're talking to the fight team. Yes. And they're talking to the coaches, and they're like, I think I want to do an amateur fight. Like, I want to try it. 100%. Next thing you know, they're fighting, And it's like, when you want to improve in all levels of your life, what better way to do that? What easier way than going to the gym, pushing yourself? Like, that is where you can see results. You can track merits. You can see how much you've progressed. You can see your body changing. Your mental health starts changing.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many facets that start working together. It's the gym.
Yeah. And there's this, it's 2025. There's been a whole lot more attention on like the mental health aspect of things. I think it's sometimes now, because of so much focus in that area, not that there shouldn't be, we tend to focus less on the physical aspects, and they're both married together. If you want a strong mind, build your body. They work in concert with each other. And the perfect example of this is talk to a guy who's in prep for a bodybuilding show, and you're mentally having to check yourself because you want a balanced life. You want to be able to still have relationships.
Yeah,
you need that support when you're going out there. It's certainly helpful to have, right? So there is an emotional, mental, psychological aspect to that. And when you look at it from outside, you're thinking it's just all physical. But a lot of that stuff was built while pursuing one or the other. And so, resilience, for example, you might not have that. You might not have it mentally, and it starts physically. You go to the gym and you're like, yeah, I got to push myself. You don't realize what you're doing up here to make it happen out here. And then over time, you become consistent, and you're building that resiliency, both physically and mentally, and it starts to translate in other aspects of your life. You start going to work. You're like, yeah, I can tough this out. I can do this. I got to get this done. Yeah, I'm tired. I'm hungry. Got to get it done. I'm in prep. I'm 5 weeks out. I feel I'm gonna feel weak. No, that's in your head. You shouldn't be. If your performance is dropping off at 8, 6, 7 weeks out already, and it's a big drop, something is wrong either with your nutrition or your sleep and recovery, or you're being soft.
Miscellaneous.
Yes, yes.
Which I heard, dude. I heard the full word.
I saw that.
I always thought it meant the other thing.
Yeah.
Pussylaneous is a real word.
It's a real word.
You're being a pussy. Pussylaneous.
Exactly. We just shortening it.
Yeah, we're shortening it.
And I don't know. It's something that for me is a big deal. But that goes into a whole other conversation. But I think it's often overlooked. And a lot of times, not that the gym should necessarily be your therapy session, it does build things that help you mentally just by going in there and going through the motions and learning to pursue something to that degree.
Well, the gym is the perfect metaphor for life, right? Because through resistance, you get stronger. But what do we say with mental stuff too, right? When you go through hard things, you get stronger. You learn. It's resistance.
Yeah.
When you're going through resistance, your body adapts and changes and overcomes. It's human nature. It's what we want to do. You just have to be there with it.
Yeah.
So they do work together, and it's cool because when you hear the quotes all the time: choose hard, do hard, hard now, easy later. Yeah. Easy now, hard later. And they're often overlooked. People are like, oh man, that's corny or that's cheesy. It's simple and it's true.
It's Occam's razor. Usually the simplest answer is the answer to the problem. And it's funny you mentioned that because there were studies done. And in fact, it was East Asia, I think it was Japan in particular, on how their students progress and their outcomes are so much better than Western schools in general with their children's education. And it all comes back to allowing them to struggle. And struggle, you can see it physiologically. You can see neurons forming when a person is trying to solve a problem. That problem solving is a struggle, right? The teacher's not going to give you the answer and just spoon feed you. They're going to let you sit there and marinate on it and struggle and try to figure it out. And you can YouTube this or Google it or whatever, and they show this under a microscope of the neurons, without getting into the anatomy and physiology of this, essentially reaching out. There are axons and dendrites that are neuron that reach out as they're trying to establish new connections in the brain because you're learning. That is exactly what happens across the body, whether we're talking about muscle tissue, talking about nervous tissue. We're talking about life. Just like you said, you need the struggle to grow. Now, my only issue with that is some people confuse struggle with suffering.
Oh,
I think there's a big difference. If you got a POW, he's suffering, she's suffering. What we're going through in a prep is not, I don't look at it that extreme.
Actually, that's a good point. That's a good point because people oftentimes, when you're preparing for something, whether it's a bodybuilder or a fight or something, we tend to use terminology that kind of correlates with, like stuff that's suffering. Like a lot of war, like tribes and going to war, preparing, and But I get it. I understand. And you always get the people online that are like, "Oh, you're acting like that," and they're usually the ones sitting on their couch not doing anything. So I try to ignore those. But no, there's a difference. Yeah, struggle and suffer. Yeah,
you want to struggle, right? It's kind of like having I have a 7-year-old, so I often will use this, and I think Jocko Willink is the first person I heard put it this way, but it could have been someone else. And it stuck with me. I will allow my child to brush the guardrails of failure because that is what you need sometimes. A lot of times. That's where you learn. Unfortunately, and I mentioned this, I think I mentioned this to you when you asked, some questions in the forum. My philosophy in life is derived from a lot of what I grew up with, which is, I think, the case for most people. And a lot of that is undergirded by proverbs and wisdom and this kind of stuff. And I think allowing someone to experience those things and to not let him drive off the cliff, right? I'm not going to let him, he's not a grown man. He's still under my responsibility and care. So, but I have to recognize that in training him to become a man, sometimes, and it's hard. It is hard as a parent to do this. Yeah, dude, I'm going to let you, I gave you a chance. I gave you an option. You chose not to listen. Not wise. A wise man listens to advice, So, you don't have to. That's fine. I'll let you brush the guardrails of failure a little bit. And then when you come back crying and whining and complaining, we can talk about.
Dude, I'm huge on that. And not a lot of parents do that.
Yeah.
And they're like, how, you going to let her, I'm like, yeah, the worst that can happen, she'll probably get hurt.
Yeah, we'll survive.
She'll be okay. But like, I can advise you, tell you why.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the day, you need to figure it out for yourself.
Yes.
That's with everything. They're not just kids.
Oh, yeah.
Me and policing.
Yeah.
I get a new officer coming in. My goal is obviously keep them safe.
Yeah.
But I can't baby them. Every time, if I step in and save them every single time they're going to make an error or a mistake, nothing crazy. No one's going to be, no lives are going to be jeopardized, but he may feel awkward or feel dumb or might have to do something. Or you can't go in it. You got to let them struggle. You got to let them figure it out. Same with someone jiu-jitsu in a fight. If you're training and you're in an awkward spot and you just like tap, hey, I can't get out of this. Let me be done. You'll never learn how to get out of this.
Oh yeah.
So I'm a huge proponent of letting people figure it out. Because and through that, those neurons are going to be reaching out from new connections. Dude, I'm about to stick on that. You started talking about that. I kind of went just like almost started drooling. I love hearing about stuff like that, dude. Because then stuff like that, space, and deep oceans. Like those are the three things that like
the mysteries of life.
Because if you think about it, when you're talking about neurons and things so microscopic, it almost looks like space.
Well, if you dig around enough, you'll find a lot of people will draw those kind of similarities. And if you look for it, you'll find it, kind of thing.
Man, you never cease to surprise me, and I've known you for all about a couple months. Dave's like, hey, you got to get this bodybuilder on, right? No disrespect. It was like general terms. That's what we said, right? I'm doing research on you. I'm like, bodybuilding is cool, but look at this dude's resume. Like, this is the stuff I want to talk about.
Done a little bit.
Father, husband, IFBB pro, business owner, coach, consultant, intelligence officer, lieutenant commander.
Yeah.
Like, okay, bodybuilder. Like, sure, we'll go with that.
That's the latest thing.
So let's back it up some. you talk about your early influences and like,
Yeah.
what was one of the, like for me, I was raised by a single mom.
Yeah.
So a lot of my lessons come from learning on my own,
Yeah.
watching people. You know, my older brother was kind of like my father figure,
Yeah.
but he was more of a do as I say, not as I do. So I went through a lot of fucking around and finding out,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and not a lot of people follow the same path. You know, some people come from, you know, a unbroken home, and then they have influences from their father or their father, you know, and speaking with people, you know, their father wasn't very much there because he was always working. So it's like, it's always interesting how the family dynamic, if you don't mind talking about it, kind of plays into your psyche and like your morality and how you were brought up.
Oh shoot.
I mean, you don't have to talk about it. Like,
Oh no, man. There's a lot to. So you know, how much time we got here?
I mean, we got enough time. It's not the weekend, so you're not competing.
That's true. Yeah, I need to milk
Gotta get
this.
your meat. Gotta get your meal in though.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. So we'll look at it from the standpoint of how you caged it, early influences, and it's relative to my family. It's a weird background. Both my parents were adopted. My dad's Italian. My last name, his last name was not originally Carter. It was Capaccione. So yeah.
Damn.
That was his mom's last name. His father's last name was Maciarella. So, like, you know, he was born in New Jersey or Jersey City, and
He's a Jersey Italian. He's a real Italian then.
I mean, he left there young because of family drama. Hence, he got adopted by other members of that family. You know, there's nothing to do with his biological father. That's a whole nother story. And that it shaped him massively, right? You grow up like that and you just want to be acknowledged and accepted by your people, which was a hard thing for him. And ironically, there's so, oh my God, where do I start? Okay, so I'll skip some stuff and maybe we'll come back to it as far as he's concerned. So both my parents were adopted. We'll come back to that point. They moved to Virginia. My mom was born, lived mostly in Virginia. She lived in California for a little while, but her parents split. There was a lot of abuse, physical abuse in that house. Her mom made a lot of bad life choices, her biological mom. So she gave her up to some strangers, but still was in physical proximity. They all still lived in Virginia, and like Hampton Roads area. So, but she grew up with who I would call Aunt Frances and Uncle Romy. For me, they were so close. They were a second set of parents. And I learned like who I am is largely because of them. Now, the influences come from those four people. Mostly. There are some outliers, but mostly from them. My dad's work ethic was supreme, absolutely ridiculous. He wanted to be a bodybuilder. He grew up around those guys. I met those guys when I got older as a teenager and was like, holy crap, your friends are huge.
Yeah.
What the hell is this? He had a friend of his, Mark Moretz, who the story goes, he had massive forearms. He had to go get a catheter inserted. They didn't do any kind of, local anesthetic, apparently, anything, nothing, just raw.
That's wild.
I'm assuming they lubed it up. And the nurse said, "Do you want me to hold your hand?" He's like, "Yes." And he broke her hand.
I mean,
so these are the kind of guys
I can understand.
Ron, another dude who was like 6 foot, monstrous quads. So these are the people I looked at and were associated with my dad. He did compete. He did the Mr. Virginia, and he genetically has everything to be, I think, really good. But my mom wasn't about that life. So she made him flush stuff down the toilet, said, "Nope, I don't want this in my house. I don't want you doing any of this stuff." We have 2 young kids, which is a very critical point. My parents were young when they had us, like 20 years old. and I have my older brother and myself. And so we all grew up together. That's what it was like.
Babies having babies.
Babies having babies. And so we were all having, figuring this life out. Like, how do y'all raise us? We don't know. What do you want us to do? So what that looks like from the outside, though, is all my friends wanted my parents. Your parents are fun. Your parents are cool. I'm riding dirt bikes at 5 years old. My dad used to work for Honda of Norfolk building bikes. We had like 13 dirt bikes in the garage, just as many brand new motors on shelves that he would rebuild and paint and all this because my dad is extremely OCD. And I picked up that obsessiveness, like diagnosed. So I am obsessive, and I had to work my way from that. But that's what I got from him. He worked all the time. So we spent most of our time with our mom and who I would call my grandparents. And thankfully for my mom, as well as my brother and me, we had them because my Uncle Romy was retired Air Force. My Aunt Frances was a retired school teacher. And obviously, they retired at some point when we grew up with them. They were still doing it, whatever. Uncle Romy was EOD, so, explosive ordnance disposal guy. And most disciplined, but hilarious. Like,
you kind of have to be.
Yeah.
you don't make mistakes there.
Yeah, he got caught. He got shrapnel. Like, and he would never talk about those stories. And I'm not going to talk about certain things so I don't get all emotional and shit on here. But I don't regret not spending more time with them. I did, I had a really good relationship with them. I just wish they'd been around long enough to see the other things that my life kind of produced, right? The military and my wife and my kid and all that. So my mom, she was extremely athletic and very smart, but because my brother and I came along, she gave up school. So she was working on her associates at the time. I think she had finished it. I can't remember when that happened when we were kids, but she was a ball player. Like, she was good at basketball. And I started playing soccer when I was like 4 or 5. Shortly after, I picked up basketball, and my obsessiveness made me good. In fact, I remember.
Not your height.
No.
You almost hit your damn head walking in, bro.
Bro, I played with guys who made me look short, and they were monster basketball players. These were phenomenal. But there was a story. We had a hurricane coming, and I was practicing out front on the basketball goal, and I was like, well, it's not raining yet. It's windy, but it's all good. Nobody's outside, right? There's a hurricane coming. Our neighbors call my parents, like, do you know your son's outside? I didn't give a rat's ass.
I was going to say it.
So
give a rat's ass about it.
And my dad didn't give a shit either. And so,
It's that learning moment. He'll figure it out.
Hey, you know what?
He gets swept off. He gets swept
exactly.
off. He'll come right back.
We'll throw a rope out to him. It'll be all right. So I had to be better. Everything had to be better. And my mom ended up coaching us in soccer and basketball. And my dad, being where I get my competitiveness from, decided he was going to coach a soccer team. Oh. And he took me and my best friend, and we went to his soccer team. And this was like, I was probably 10. And we had to play my mom's team. And my dad is...
Oh, that was...
Oh, yeah.
That's dirty. He's like, we're gonna play physically and mentally.
Oh, he's a cheater, dude. Like, he would cheat.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's what they say.
We can't play we couldn't play basketball with him because he wasn't as skilled at basketball as we were, but he was certainly bigger and stronger. He'd elbow you out of the driveway. You'd be like, God, what? Oh.
You bumped into me.
Yeah, he just laugh about it,
Dads.
Our house was, by the standards of my wife, who is, All right, let me back up before my filter turns off. I grew up in a mixed household, so everything was fair game. We stabbed each other. All right, there was no holding back with comments and barbs. Race was race was on the table. There was nothing off the table. Okay, my mom's side of the family had some issues with things and certain people who were of a different color, and my dad's family did the same thing. So now that I've prefaced this, how can I put this? By the standards of a therapist and my white wife, who's Hungarian German ethnicity, we were dysfunctional. All right.
I get that a lot.
Like we would run around the house chasing each other. I have a scar on my elbow where my brother launched me into the garage, and I should have got stitches and didn't. He busted through the window panes in the door because he was locked out. Shot me. I went out to get the mail in my underwear. He grabs the paintball gun with a nitrogen can on it, Titman 98, turned the velocity up to like 300 something feet per second probably, and just started shooting my ass so I couldn't get back in the house. He had a dart gun, all right? As a gun that fired little mini metal darts. Why our parents gave this to teenagers, I don't know.
Back in the day, the toys were different, man.
Toys were made to make you stronger.
Yeah, sock and boppers, dude. I would level people.
Yeah.
Now you can't sell those.
Can't. No, it's it's dangerous. And so he chased me around the house, shooting me with this thing. And my dad's like, oh hell no. So he grabs it, chases my brother around. My brother's not. He was probably more foreskin than foresight. So he ran into the bathroom, closes the door, and locks it. Like, you got nowhere to go.
Chill, because I did that. I forgot what I did to my older brother. And that was the only open door.
Yeah.
So I went in there, locked it, and then I'm thinking to myself, like, there's nowhere to go.
There's nowhere to go.
I'm going to starve in here.
Oh, that would have been better. Starving. Because my dad's like, well, I can fix the door. So he busts the door open. Oh. My brother puts himself in the shower with the shower doors closed. My dad's thinking, well, got him now. Gotcha, bitch. Gotcha, leans bitch. Over and just unloads on him. I'm like, you could have taken an eye out, dude. Like, what? And he's just having a ball. That's how we grew up, right?
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And all that to say, so hearing that, very unique, right? Because I've been told I grew up dysfunctionally. Yeah. I would agree, seeing other families, and that's fine. Oh, yeah. But it goes to show you, we as people, what we choose to follow and emulate, and what we choose to ignore, and what goes into those decision making. That decision making. Yeah. Because you're very structured. You're very organized, focused. That upbringing doesn't sound like it fosters organization, structure, and focus. No disrespect. I come from something very similar, so I feel I can kind of speak on it. But, it shows you, we as people, why do we make the decisions that we make? Because me and my brother, love him to death. He's an awesome human. But we took two very different paths.
Same here. Oh, yeah.
But we were in the same environment. So it's that nature versus nurture argument. Why do we as people do the things we do? If you could figure that out, then we all became millionaires. I have my thoughts. That was a major driver, thinking like that made me start my undergrad in psychology. I was one semester away from a psych degree, and I changed my major because I became disillusioned with how the DSM works. But that was me as a kid. I always wanted to understand, why do I think this way? Why don't other people think the way I think? I was a big people watcher. That sounds creepy. No, I'm the same way. I love, a lot of the podcast stemmed from me wanting to learn why people do what they do and how they do it. And and it started with fighters, right? And I'm like, if I can apply that mindset to this career, how good will I be at this? Or it's very interesting how the brain works and why. I've always been interested in that. And I never pursued it's education in it.
I think it's funny because you have to look at everything holistically, right? It's the same thing with what I do as a coach. I rarely am looking at a client and saying, scope locked on one system. You are a system of systems, right? They all are touching each other in some way, shape, or form. The easy one that everybody understands for the most part. Why do we care so much now about blood pressure? Well, blood pressure, if it's high, chronically elevated, it's just a matter of time, wreck your kidneys. Two different systems, right? Cardiovascular system and renal system. So if you're looking at it simply as one source, scope locked on this one thing, you may miss something else. And when we look at what you're talking about, I think the same thing applies. I think there is a biological element to it. I think there's a genetic element to it as much as there is an environmental, psychological and sociological element to it. So, for example, my brother and I sound like the same case. We're very, very different. Grew up in the same house. How we received information was very different. How we processed it was very different. Why did I pick up the obsessiveness of my father? My brother picked up his mechanical inclination, right? So he's very, he was a Toyota tech for a while, and then he said, I don't want to do this. I just want to work on my own cars. So now he's in IT and all that, has a career in that. But he was really good. He taught me more than my dad did because my dad was so obsessive. All I could do was hold the light.
And you better hold it right.
Oh my, dude! When I see people make those jokes, it hurts.
Yeah, it's like, dude, some about this video is affecting me.
I start getting all angry. It's like I remember, and it shows back up later in life when I have the opportunity to get him back. Dad, just hold the light. Just hold the light. Remember? Don't you remember? I got this. And so,
it always comes back around. That's why, as a parent, I try to be cool, calm. Because my mom always told me, she said, it's in Spanish, "Hijo fuiste, padre será," and it was every time I was doing some fucked up shit to her.
Yeah.
And the saying is, "A child you've been, a father you will be."
Yeah.
Basically, the saying is like, what you're doing now is gonna come back to you. So be very mindful of how you treat your parents. And
that's right.
And I would always be like, yeah, mom, yeah. Man, dude, she hit me with the ultimate "told you so." Like 15 years later, like, what did I say? And I'm like, you're right.
Yeah, and man, yeah. There's so many things that are going through my head when you say that. There's a verse that speaks to something that a lot of people will not like to hear or resonate with, probably, but I found it true in my own life, and that's that the behaviors of your parents, in particular your father as a man, are passed on, whether you like it or not. Now, they found this to be evident in genetics, where you actually are picking up non-physical attributes that are expressed and manifested in your life that were passed on genetically from your parents. You're like, how the hell is that possible? This is not a simple, okay, you inherited their autoimmune disease. No, you're talking about behavior. And this is where you start to get into, back to your question, epigenetics and how the environment will influence your actual genetics to turn on or off or the expression of something, right? And we start getting into the conversation about, phenotypes and genotypes and all this. But it's really interesting when you start looking at it and saying, all of it's tied together, man. It's arguably why my brother and I, 2 years apart, grew up in the same house, and I'm out here mooning trucks when they drive down the road, and he's trying to keep me out of trouble. It's like, how did this happen? And then the paths just continue to diverge as we get older and older. And, they do experiments with this where they'll take identical twins and try to figure out these kinds of things. Because there's obviously more fitting for an experiment because they're identical. They're the same. So they shouldn't be any different. But instead, you do find some differences. And then there's some things that you don't. But dude, there's such a driver for me is understanding not only myself and why I think the way I do, but why other people either don't think like me or think however they do.
What did you study again? Because you are just going off.
Sorry.
No, I love it. This is the stuff when I envision conversations. This is how I envision them going. Just me, like trying to take in as much information as I can.
I started, so I was homeschooled from 8th grade on. That all started because my brother, again, this is where we deviated. I was horrible at home, pissing in public, I was beating up the neighborhood bullies. Literally. Yeah, they had it coming. And then, of course, when you give one of them a bloody nose and their parents call the police, you're like, this kid was chasing me home after school every day. So
damn police, I can't stand them.
Hey, they did the right thing. They're like, oh, this is like the early 90s. So they're like, you got him.
I look at the parents. I'm like, you guys got this? Like,
yeah,
I don't need to be involved. Like,
as soon as they heard
I
that,
hate that.
Oh yeah, it's silly. So I was that kid at home, getting my mouth popped. I can say this now because we're past the statute of limitations. I got beat with everything. Right.
That's discipline, man.
Yes.
My mother disciplined me very well.
Yep. Spareth the rod, spoil the child.
And you talk about the mind games.
Yeah.
Sometimes she lets you pick the weapon.
Yep. Go get that branch.
I'd
go get that switch.
No, bro. No, I'd go get like something soft, and she'd be like, "Oh, you want to play?"
Yeah. I only did that
turn.
once,
and I'm like, It's gonna get worse now, huh? Because I tried to. Okay,
bro. All right. This here it comes. All right, everyone, brace yourselves for the dysfunction. Mom, I love you, but I'm telling the story. She won't remember these stories.
No.
Selective memory kicks in.
Are you sure our moms aren't related?
Yeah,
She Puerto Rican at some point.
My mom spoke a lot of Spanish when we were growing up. All of her friends were Hispanic, and then she had a lot of friends from Kuwait, and that's a whole nother story. I have pictures of me and the whole deal. So, it's like, mi madre habla mucho español.
Tú hablas español, yo hablo español. Ahora podemos comunicar en español. Este episodio va a ser español ahora. People are like, damn.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, lo siento. So we had a really culturally interesting upbringing. My dad wasn't a part of any of that. He was always at work. And when we were homeschooled, my mom stopped working just to do this because my brother needed to get out of school, do his class clowning. In school, he was like terrible. And it was a number of things that played into that. They didn't know he was lactose intolerant. So it made it seem like he had behavioral issues because it was screwing him. Like he would down milk and cheese, and God help you if you were in the room when that happened. But it was also affecting his cognition and and his behavior. So he couldn't focus. It was just terrible. So
I never thought of it like when you're uncomfortable. Not to say uncomfortable because it's a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah,
you're not at your best.
No, and you don't know what's wrong. So you just start thinking, well, it's just how I am. And then they put him on Ritalin because that was the drug of choice at the time. And that made him feel like a zombie. So my mom's like, all right, we got to do something. Found out he was lactose intolerant. Kind of resolved that. But, he was a teenager and he wanted pizza. Mm-hmm. So she said, here's the option. My teachers told her, hey, he's excelling in science and all this, so we can put him in another honors or whatever, or you can do whatever you want. So she asked me, I said, well, if you're going to homeschool him, I'll do it. Sure. And that allowed me to start going to, in my junior year of high school, before this was really a big thing, dual enrollment at college. So I did my associates in applied science. I wanted to do something a little more focused than just like general studies. And then I transferred to ODU, and probably should have finished that psych degree, but I switched and just was like, at that point in my life, had no confidence in myself. And so instead of trying to do what I knew I really wanted, which was health science, medicine stuff, I said, I just need a piece of paper so I can graduate. So I did a comms degree, which had a lot more benefit, I found out later on, than I thought it would. We can talk about that later. But then I went back after I graduated and did pre-med. So because I had so many science classes already, it was like a no-brainer.
That explains a lot.
So I did that. Shout out to Dr. Ralph Stevens. I think he's still around. I'm going to find him. He was the one who probably set the wheels in motion. I had got accepted, or was going to, at the time, was looking at going into the Navy. I did not tell my wife. She was already in the Navy. I didn't want her to have any influence or anything to do with it. And he set me aside after I, completed his course. He said, listen, I'm going to give you a letter of recommendation. I don't want to. I think you need to go to med school. And we talked for a while, and he signed it, wrote it. And that was when my brain was like, he teaches at Eastern Virginia Medical School. I should probably be listening to this guy. But I had no self-confidence. So that morphs into a whole bunch of other stuff. Later on, I ended up really needing to scratch that itch. And I thought, well, I'm at NCIS at the time. I was like, I'll just do a master's in public health. Went to finish that degree, and COVID hit. And so I did my rotations during COVID at the hospital, with the EMSs, at the fire department, the EMTs and all those guys, and was sitting with, patients, with the RDs, the registered dietitians, with the nurse practitioner, all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do, man. Shit. So I'm skipping a lot of stuff. So ask me questions if you got them. But ultimately, I ended up like hundreds and hundreds of hours shadowing in the OR and the clinics. I went to conferences. And so when I started shadowing with the PA and ortho, the last one I did, he's like, I don't know what you're doing here. He said, you are well qualified to do this, what's called the IPAP program, Inter-Service Physician Assistance Program. So just go ahead and drop your application. He said, all the PA students have to come through us anyway. He said, I'm telling you, you'll be fine. The Navy wouldn't let me do it.
So you were doing this separate from the Navy.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I would take leave just to go and get hours. And so I was doing that. He would let me see patients on my own. He's like, he said, I'll be right back. Dom's going to talk to you about your distal bicep tendon rupture. He knows all about this.
Not the distal bicep, but the
yeah.
Like that. No. So like you started your rotations during probably one of the times with the most patients we would see, like COVID, there were so many patients.
Yeah.
You hear about like New York City and what they had to do in big cities. Like you were like kind of thrown into the fire.
Yeah. And it wasn't easy to get in there. I would have graduated even sooner, but it was such a fight just to get someone to sign off and let you go in. And so when I did, it was interesting.
So you're in the Navy.
Yeah.
What was your goal at the time you're doing this? You wanted to go.
I wanted to go to PA school.
PA school.
Yeah. I was like, how can I make this happen? And the Navy has programs. The IPAP is an Army program, but they take every service, every DOD service. So I say that because Coast Guard doesn't fall under that. But the Navy doesn't have seats for officers in that program. All the other services do. And so he's like, bullshit. I said, no, I'm telling you. He said, I just can't believe that. So I reached out to the community manager. He's like, yeah, we don't take officers. We only send enlisted. And so I said, well, what options do I have with the Navy? Well, they have 2 programs, but if I graduate through their programs, they'll bump me down 2 pay grades. I'm like, no, that's not acceptable. So I asked myself, why is it I want to do this? Why do I want to be a provider? And the answer ultimately came to, I love that domain, that field, and I really just want to help people. And so I had started my coaching consulting business in 23, but I hadn't used it much at all. I had a friend who, I think I can say his name. I'll just say James, who was like, dude, I need your help. I want you to train me. And so I'd kind of, danced around it. I was like, all right. So I did. And, that was like, yeah, this works. This scratches the itch. Because he came to me with a host of issues, like medical issues. He had undiagnosed hypertension, high blood pressure. He was pre-diabetic. based on his hemoglobin A1C. He had some physical issues in terms of instabilities and things that we could correct through physical therapy modalities. And he had an endocrinological issue, and we resolved all of that. That's a whole nother thing. And he actually reached out to me way later and sent me a picture, and I actually posted this, showing his before and after. He's like, dude, I couldn't have done this without you. I'm like, you did all the work, man.
You're just a consultant.
Yeah. Like for me, the biggest win was that, helping him improve where he wanted to. And he was lifestyle. So we weren't going at this like hardcore. This was, I want you to still, and this is across the board. It doesn't matter if you're a competitor or not. If the approach is not sustainable, then the individual will not comply or adhere, and it's not going to work. And I skipped a part of my career path. I worked for Abacus, which is a health information technology solutions based company. It's all research based. And I was a project manager there doing work in the obesity program and renal program and tobacco cessation stuff. And that was the obesity program. That was the number one issue. It wasn't getting people to lose weight. You can drop 10% of your body weight relatively easily every time. There's 1,000 ways to skin the cat to do it. The problem was getting them to maintain that. And so, for him to send me that all that time later and still look that good, it's like awesome, dude. That's what I wanted. That's where the interest for me with the lifestyle person is peaked, because it's like, how can I troubleshoot this, get them to where they want to be, but not uproot their life and still maintain that when I'm long gone? Because that's where the martial artist in me comes out. When I was teaching, I wanted my students to be better than me. I wanted them to be able to execute without me. If they were there just to learn how to defend themselves, I wanted them to be able to do that against me, who's twice their size. And to have the confidence to know that, okay, this works, I can do this. It wasn't about me showboating how much better I was. It wasn't about, anything ego related. It was all about, I want you to be better. Not only when you came in here, but ideally to be better than me at some point, if you want to, stick with it that long. So yeah, it was a lot of words.
There's a dichotomy to that. Like, I have the training and experience to share with you, in hopes that you can use what I give you against me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what differentiates anyone who's in the service field, whether it's, first responder, coaching, like all this is service related, military. Like if you 100%. Can train people under you, quote unquote, but your constituents, to be able to be self-adapting, managing, that's the goal, right? Like then we have the other side of instructors who want to maintain their relevancy, so they keep people at a certain point, but you're doing them a disservice, which is the whole reason you're doing what you're doing. You want people to grow and be better. I want to push people to be better than me. And then I play catch up.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather have that.
Well, then you're teaching each other.
Yeah.
Right. And as an instructor, that was a big thing early on. Cause I was doing hop keto for almost 20 years. And as an instructor, you should recognize that you are learning as you're teaching. You are learning from these students, these people who come in as white belts, no belts. There is something you're learning every time. And if you can't figure that part out, you probably need to reevaluate what you're doing. I think the biggest thing that crushes anyone in any field or just in relationships in general is ego. It takes a lot of humility. There's
number one man killer, man.
100%, 100%. Yep. And it has never, bodybuilding is an excellent example of seeing that in action. There are guys who get their pro cards and they think, I'm a pro. This is not 1995. We're in 2025. You know how many pro card holders are out there? They've had to, the IFBB had to change something recently where they're like, if you haven't used your pro card to compete in the last 3 years, you got to do it all over again.
I mean, it makes sense. Are you still a pro if you haven't done the process over and over and over and continue to do it?
At that point, just admit you're retired.
Yeah.
So
retired pro.
Yeah, you're retired pro. And I look at that and I'm like, there are guys who go out there and they ruin their reputations because their ego gets so big because they got a pro card and they think that makes them something. And what that tells me is your identity is tied to your title. Something
you were given.
Yeah.
You were given that title.
To some degree, you earned it, right? But let's be fair. If I went to a different show, would I have still won overall? Don't know. You don't know who's going to show up. There's another pro league where these guys will switch over to the IFBB Pro League, and these guys are already monsters. If that guy shows up at your show, and this is your first time trying to get a pro card, sorry. It's like when Ronnie Coleman came out in 2003. Everybody's like, well, he's getting second, So that all that to say, a large part of it is out of your control, and you might get lucky in terms of you showed up in the right shape at the right show at the right time against the right competition that you won. But you'll find out if you keep going, because to me, it's like getting your black belt. All right, now you're getting started. Now it starts. Everything prior to this was all prepping you for this. When you get your pro card, and this is just my philosophy that I apply to myself. This doesn't apply to anybody else because that's their lives and I'm just doing mine. But I look at it as I am not going to get my pro card and then fall off the face of the earth as far as bodybuilding goes. No, I want to use it.
You did the opposite. You got your pro card and then competed.
Yeah,
pro.
5 weeks later. So because now you know what kind of pro you are. If you've never used it, you're just a pro. It's like I went out and got a nice sports car or an Italian supercar, and I never drove it. I never took it to the track. I don't know what I got. I just got it. So
well, and I feel like that's what a lot of people do. They reach that goal.
Yeah.
And once they get it, it's like, I'm here, got it.
Yeah.
But there's so much that comes after that.
It just seems to me like opportunity wasted. And that's, I understand, maybe not fair to say, because some people, that was it. That was all they wanted. And that's okay. It's just, I look at life as, and this goes back to ego. We are presented with opportunities. What we do with them is based on what we did before the opportunity came. A lot of the opportunities only seem to present themselves because you would align yourself to be there for it to happen. It wasn't necessarily that, there are some cases where opportunity is just, it seems like it's tossed at you. But if you're not ready for it, it isn't an opportunity you can take advantage of. So sometimes your ego gets in the way, like the case, an example, a point I was trying to make earlier, where somebody gets their pro card and their ego prevents them from even ever seeing the opportunity that could have been right there in front of them. And so I look at it like, you know what? I am not going to take for granted these opportunities. At the very least, I'm going to position myself to be ready for whatever comes. And then I have the decision to make. And that ties back into, wisdom and discernment. That's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, I'm going on a tangent now.
No, it's a good tangent. It's a good tangent because the stuff you're talking about can help bodybuilders, but it can also help people who are going through something in life and they're trying to reach a goal. And it's like, are you ready for that goal? Did you do everything required for that goal? Because oftentimes what I see, people complaining, man, why don't I have this? Why can't I get this? Why is life against me? And the fixer in me wants to be like, are you doing what's even required to get it? You can't be upset at the results you didn't get if you're not doing the work you're supposed to be doing to get them. I just want to take a second to shout out a few companies who've believed in me. These were one of our first official sponsors, so huge shout out. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Carbo Jewelers, established in 1997 on the values of honesty and integrity. Whether you're searching for the perfect piece, need expert repair services, visit Carbo Jewelers in Newark's Ironbound District, where your jewelry is always in safe hands. This episode is also brought to you by Continental Jewelers, proudly serving Hudson County, New Jersey since 1964. Whether you're seeking a timeless piece or need expert repairs, they've got you covered. Visit Continental Jewelers, your trusted source for all things jewelry. You can find them on Instagram at Carbo Jewelers or online at carbojewelers.com. Lastly, big shout out to Carbo Trading. Besides coins, precious metals, and jewelry, if it could be traded and collected, he's probably got it. They can be found on Instagram at carbo.trading. You can find all of our sponsors out online on our sponsor page at therelentlessproject.com.
Dude, I think you will understand this as law enforcement. We often hear people say, oh, the system's bad, the system's against you, the system this, that, or the other, all these negative things. Like, if you really believe that, then why don't you set yourself up for opportunities that don't get you caught up in the system? Right? If it's really like that, which I would argue it's not as much as people seem to think it is. Don't get me wrong. I know there's corruption everywhere.
Everywhere.
But you know what? I'll tie this to something a little less sensitive. Healthcare. We as Americans constantly poo-poo the American healthcare system, and it is not perfect by any stretch. And I'm saying this as a public health MPH person. You can compare it to any other system, healthcare system in the world you want. But here's the reality. It's not the healthcare system that is the major issue. It's the population for which it's trying to manage and take care of. If our population was as healthy as, pick some European country where everybody likes it, I'm not going to say any names, this country's model, well, their population health is far and away better than ours. If we all took care of ourselves as individuals, our healthcare system could easily accommodate our population. But when I have 60, 70, hell, even if it's only 50% of the population that's got metabolic syndrome, is morbidly obese, cardiovascular disease, all these things that are tied to those disease states, what do you think is going to happen? It can't possibly manage all of that. And so this, whatever system it is you're talking about, I think it all ties back to the individual. If all of us as individuals got our shit together, I think some of these things would be less of an issue than they are.
Well, growing up, you know what I did? I avoided the system.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be involved in the system, so I avoided it.
That's all you got to do.
It's accountability.
Yep.
And being a cop from both sides, I can see the issue from both sides, and it's always funny when I get called to. This is generally speaking. I get called to, someone beating someone up or beating their old lady up or something, right? I go there. I'm talking to you. I don't know the situation. I'm coming new, so I'm talking to you to get your side.
Yeah.
And then you got the person going, but you're just here to fuck me over. It's like, bro, that's not why I'm here. I'm trying to get the story. Okay? Yeah. I'm trying to see what's going on. Tell me your side.
Yeah.
No, you're just gonna arrest me. I promise you I get paid the same if I don't arrest you.
Yeah.
Right?
It's less paperwork if I don't have to.
I get paid the same, and I tell people this. I'm always upfront because at the end of the day, you can use it against me if you want, but I'm trying to be transparent and open with you.
Yeah.
Bro, I get paid the same to sip coffee and watch people drive.
Yeah.
I don't get any extra money for arresting you or writing citations or, where I work, they're not like, yo, let's go hammer people. No, they're like, hey, I want people to see you. This is the goal of our department.
Yeah.
I want people to see you so they feel safe, so they feel comfortable. So if something happens, they're like, man, they're out and about.
Yeah.
That's our goal.
Yeah.
We're not out to especially we serve the community. We're here to serve you. We're not here to manage you and control you and run you. We're here to serve you.
Yeah.
Okay. So we deal with people who, there's a raccoon in my yard. You know, we also deal with stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we show up and the raccoon scaries off.
Are you sure the raccoon doesn't think you're there to arrest him? I mean,
Dude, it blows my mind.
yeah.
The perception that we have when in reality, we're just, you know, I like serving people. I like helping people. That's why I took this job. Sounds corny, but it's true. Right. So I don't complain about the little calls, the big calls or the calls in between, because if this is your worst thing happening to you and you've took it upon yourself to call because you can't handle this problem.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for. And then I'm talking to someone and they're like, you're out to get, bro. No, I'm not. Like, and if you would just listen to me and just not say listen to me in the sense of listen to what I tell you.
Yeah.
Comprehend the words that are coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
I don't want to jam you up. Okay. However, your actions led to me being here.
Oh, man.
So we have to acknowledge that part. If you can't even acknowledge that part, that's telling me a lot about how this altercation is going to go.
Yep.
You know, you know, I hate pulling people over, but when I pull people over, they run a stop sign in front of me. Everyone else is looking at the cop like, are you going to do something? So I'm like, let me pull them over. I go up to the door. There's two types of people I run into. There's three types. There's the one who goes, yeah, I ran that. I thought I could beat it. You know, I'm sorry.
Yep.
You know what I do? You learned your lesson, right? Cool. Don't do it again. Goodbye.
Yep.
You know, you run, and then there's the second person who's like, I don't think I ran it. I didn't see it, or I didn't.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I get it. Like police coming to your door, whatever. I tell them you ran it. Okay. If you say I ran it, okay, I don't think I did. Cool. Usually let you go too.
Yeah.
It's the motherfucker who wants to argue with me because I'm coming to you to be like, hey, you did this in front of me. Like, if you're gonna do it when there's no cops around, right? You know, I didn't run the stop sign or the red light, but yeah, you did. No, I didn't. Is your body cam on? Yes, it is. And my car camera got it too. And I usually tell people not to be a dick. I'm like, hey, dude, you want to have an argument? I'll give you the time and date. Here's your ticket.
Yep.
Plead not guilty. We can argue it. I'm not going to argue on the side of the road.
Yeah.
I was just looking for you to, hey, acknowledge, boom, this is what happened. Cool. You understand it. Don't do it, especially in front of a cop. I understand. Cool. You're good to go. You want to argue? I will give you the time and date. I'll give you the time and date.
And they usually don't want to.
No.
Because they know what their behavior was.
Yeah. And it's like, you know you ran it.
Yeah.
You know you ran it. It's all about accountability. Right? That's the in my mind, and I'm probably going to get hammered for this. Cops are just accountability.
Yeah.
You know, you get called. Hey, there needs to be some sort of accountability. You can't take it for yourself. Well, we have to do it for you. Unfortunately,
it's in the name. It's enforcement. Enforcement is just a means of accountability, holding you accountable.
But it's this. It translates to so many things.
Yeah.
You want to train, right? Like, why can't I lose weight? Well, are you? How's your diet? When's the last time you drank water? I don't drink water. I drink Mountain Dew.
Dude.
Okay, let's start with that. And I always tell people, because people come to me for diet advice.
Yeah.
Wrong person. Wrong person. I train hard so I can eat what I want. But even that being eat harder. Yeah. But even that, I try to be very mindful of what I'm putting into my body.
Yeah.
You know, so but that being said, I like to sneak a treat here and there. And if your training allows for that, that's fine. But you have to be accountable. And that you were talking about this earlier in the sense of sustainability.
Yeah.
All these diet fads that come out.
That's crazy.
You know, like you get people, I want to lose weight. Okay, I'm going to go onto this diet that requires me to, lower my calorie intake by 1,000 and I can take no sweets. Well, if that's all you've eaten and now you're asking to eliminate 100% of it, be on 1,000 calorie deficit, that's not sustainable for you.
That's akin to saying to somebody who I'll use a client as an example. She's 59. She's a triathlete, and she has a coach who does all her programming for that stuff. And so her coach said what I told her. I said, you need to be at your age for sure doing resistance training, weight training. It'll be good for your bone health. It'll be good for other things. Mechanical stress on the bones can lead to bone redeposition to areas where it's needed. It's all great stuff. So she's like, well, can you do that? can you put something together for me? Yeah. Now, if I said to this person, you know what, you want to reach your goal and you want to lose weight and you want to look like how you feel and all this, no triathlete stuff, no running, no swimming, no biking. I just want you going to the gym 5 days a week. If I completely alter their lifestyle, do you think that's going to work?
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable for them. So I have to meet them where they are. Same thing with nutrition. If I, like you said, hey, you know, you're used to eating these kinds of foods. In fact, this is how I start. I learned this from my mentor, Chris Tuttle, who's my coach. I send them as part of their intake. I need to know what it is you prefer and don't. And this really is applicable to lifestyle, folks. Competitors, you know what you're signing up for. You're volunteering for a little bit more than what somebody else might have to go through. So that way I can meet them where they are. If I sit here and say to you, you don't eat fish. Well, I'm putting fish in 2 of your meals. Why would I do that? I know you're going to either lie to me about doing it, or you're going to constantly cheat on your diet because you don't want fish, or it's just not going to work.
You're going to look for the shortcut.
Yeah.
How can I skip eating fish? I'm going to eat everything else except fish.
Yeah. Oh, I missed my meal today. And you're not telling, and now I'm like, well, why? What happened? And you come up with some bullshit instead of just telling me, you know, I don't like fish, but you actually told me that to begin with. And I was just going to change your behavior in your life because that's what I want. No, you can't do that. It has to be sustainable. And it's the same thing with food, with training, and this is in all of my check-ins, I assess psychology, like the psychological, emotional, and mental aspects. I need to know how you're feeling, how you're perceiving things, what stressors are in or not in your life right now. In fact, I got a message waiting on me to reply to from a client who did his check-in this morning, who has a 9 or 10-month-old now, and that's a stressor. So
Ain't it?
I'm like, bro, been there. I know. You just tell me, keep me informed on your check-ins. Let me know what's going on, because I will adjust things based on that. He is in a weight loss phase right now. We have a lot of weight to lose, and he wants to compete, which we're aiming at next year. And it's like, this is how you have to manage these things. It has to be sustainable, and it has to be tailored to that individual, and not just their preferences around food and training, but their life and their environment and their stressors that come with it. So yeah, the behavioral aspects of all of these things, whether you're talking about being a cop and dealing with people and their behavior, or you're talking about bodybuilding, or you're talking, in the Navy, we had this thing, you have this is going to sound so goofy, a good conduct medal, or ribbon. And if
participation.
But the joke though is, it's not that you've been good for 10 years. It's that you didn't get caught doing anything wrong. Because that's the reality, right? I go with Morpheus's quote from The Matrix. I'm like, some rules are meant to be bent and others are meant to be broken. So, that's, unfortunately, some people take that too far, and that's something I'm dealing with at work right now. But that's how, you look at it and you say, Ross Flanagan posted something. He's the owner, he's a bodybuilder, owner of a business that does like Cream of Rice, and Flavor Gang is the business name. They do all these other things. He posted something I saw yesterday that I thought was really fitting. And it's this idea that as a bodybuilder, when you're in prep or you're in off season or whatever, you're restricted. And I liked what he was saying. I'm like, you know what? You volunteered for this. You're not restricted. At any moment, you can say to yourself, I don't want to do this. No one is stopping you. No one makes you do it, and no one's stopping you from doing it. So the only restriction is, if I'm in prep, I'm 2 days out. Yeah, I know what it is I have to do. There are things I should not eat. But if I really want to do it, it's not a restriction. for me, it's just a part of this is what I like to do to achieve the thing I like even more. So I don't feel like when people are like, how do you do this? My brother, sorry, Tony, we had a long conversation. We both grew up in the same house, right? We both did the whole bodybuilding thing as, gym goers. And he's like, yeah, I just don't have the discipline, man. I don't have the discipline like you. I don't know how you do it. I'm like, that's sad. That hurts to hear, because he's got genetics way better than mine. He grows, he can fart in the gym and grow quads like 2 inches before he leaves. That's all he took. And he's like 6'1", so he's in a better height position than I think I am. And the only reason he isn't out there, laughing at me on stage is because of that. He's like, I just don't have the discipline. It's like,
you could though.
Yeah, discipline carries over into everything.
It's a muscle. So I was talking to, shout out Megan. She said this, and it made so much sense. The discipline muscle. Yeah. You train it. You train discipline like you train your muscles.
Yeah.
You constantly choose hard things and conquer hard things and push through adversity and develop resilience. You are working your discipline muscle.
Yes.
And it grows. And I always mention this study, and I always forget to reference it, but you being the fucking genius you are.
No, not at
there's
all.
They found that there's this cortex that can be measured.
Okay.
When you choose to do things you don't want to do, hard things. Doesn't matter if it's gym or, you want to go take a walk around the block, or you need to get an assignment done.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do it now, but you choose to do it anyway. When you choose to do things you don't want to do and you go against that voice in your head, this cortex develops and gets bigger.
Yeah.
And there's a study that shows physiologically the change that happens when you choose hard things or choose to do things you don't want to do.
Struggle.
And it's always been the struggle. It's always been a mantra, right?
Yeah.
And it's always been sayings and quotes and from all the go-getters.
Yeah.
But there's a research that shows physically there's a change that happens when you do hard things and conquer them.
Yeah.
Whether it's you have your sink is full of dishes and you got to get to them and you're choosing to ignore it, that shrinks. But if you go, this is what I need to do, I got to get it done, and you do it anyway, it grows. Yeah. It's not badass like you have to go train 5 days a week, wake up at 4 a.m. every day, run 10 miles. You develop this by just doing things you don't want to do.
Yeah.
The more you do those, it's a snowball effect. It grows. And then guess what? You're waking up at 4 a.m. You're going to the gym 5 days a week. And then you're doing that. And now you're running marathons and triathlons. Or you're striving for bigger things, because it's not that it gets easier. You just get better equipped at dealing with it.
Yes.
As this grows. I saw that study. Another guest I had on actually shared it with me on Instagram in the middle of the gym.
Yeah.
And I'm having a little conversation with myself, like, man, do I really want to? I think I'm good. I think I'm done for today. And then he sends me that study. And I'm like, no, I'm going to go do a couple more sets because I don't want to.
Yeah.
And it's the little things.
That's it. Yep. That's the David Goggins kind of mindset of, I'm doing this stuff I don't want to do because I'm trying to improve on myself. Now, there's obviously, a point, there's a threshold for just about everything. But I like that idea. And it is one of those things that's tough to manage as a bodybuilder, because a lot of times it's contraindicated. It's like, hey, so one of the things, again, I try to give credit all the time, because I didn't learn anything completely on my own, right? I didn't get my pro card on my own. I didn't win my first show on my own. I didn't become educated on my own, right? All this stuff came from other people. So John Jewett, I'm in J3 University, Chris Tuttle, these are two people that I listen to and try to learn from a lot. There's others, but this comes to mind because I've heard it from them. You have a recovery bank account, right? There's so much you can spend before you can't recover anymore. So if you're in the gym 7 days a week and you're 100% intensity every day, how much are you going to be able to recover from all that? Right. And this is one of those things that applies outside of just the gym. You have to figure out, how much can I endure before I need to breathe, before I need to recharge? And for bodybuilders, that's hard. You're like, I just want to, you got that relentless mentality. I'm just going to go in and I'm not going to stop until I'm crawling out of this bitch. Leg day, I should not, I should have weak knees and be stumbling. People think I'm drunk when I'm leaving. Maybe. But there's a point where it's diminished returns. There's a point where it's now working against you because you can't recover from it. You need more recovery time, or you just don't have enough. If your focus is, my feedback from the judges was I need a bigger back, or I need bigger legs, or I need whatever, and you're dedicating more time in a week, more volume to that thing, you can't do that for everything. And it's hard. Because we all grew up, especially if you played sports, hearing, if you want to be the best at something, you got to put 100% into that. But that's not reality, right? You got a family, you've got responsibilities. So what I've come to find out, and this is the question I get, is how do you balance all this stuff? How are you a pro bodybuilder and a dad and a service member and all this? It's like, well, I give 100% when and where I need to. That's it. Dave Chappelle made a joke in one of his stand-ups that I think is appropriate. When he was doing the Chappelle show, peak Dave.
Good show.
He was like, yeah, I got to do the Chappelle show. That's like 16 hours a day. I go home, I eat, shower. That's like 30 minutes. Spend time with my kids for like 30 minutes, then I go to sleep, do it all over again. It's a joke, but the reality is, you have to figure out, I've got this much time and I've got these responsibilities and these things that I care about. How am I going to prioritize them and be the best at all of them? You don't get to choose. Some people try to. Some people are like, I'm not going to be a dad. Peace. I'll see my kids, twice a year. Okay. Wait 10, 15 years and see how that works out. You want to be the best bodybuilder. There's somebody who will remain unnamed, and they post about this, and it's really, I'll just say it how I feel about it. I think it's fucking disgusting to sit here and post stuff like, yeah, I'm not going to see my kid again until I'm where I want to be. So it's all about you. This responsibility that you helped bring into the world that can't function and develop appropriately and optimally without you. Takes second place to bodybuilding. Bodybuilding, you don't even have a pro card, right? So you haven't even made it that far, and not for a lack of trying. And even if you did, guess what? Guess what's not going to be there in 10 years? Bodybuilding, because you're going to age out. And if you're not at top of the field, you're not even probably making any money doing it. You're spending more than you make. So when I see stuff like that, I'm like, damn, dude. So you're going to put 100% of everything into this and sacrifice the things that really need you.
We glorify it. We glorify the go-getter mentality. And I respect and appreciate that. But the go-getter mentality has to be applied to what's important, right? Like,
yes.
I work so much because I want to build my family, build my future, right? Because I was having this conversation with my daughter the other day. I said, what is a millionaire if he doesn't have trusted people and his family and his support system there to enjoy it?
He's a lonely rich guy.
Like, if you make $1 million and you're alone, does it matter?
No.
But if you make $1 million and you have your family, your friends, like, now that $1 million goes a long way.
Mike Tyson talked about that. Mike Tyson in the 80s, monster. Monster in the ring, monster in lifestyle, tigers and mansions and all this, hundreds of millions of dollars in a short span of time. Fast forward, he loses it all. He gets it back to some degree. And he talks about it. He's like, I hated that person. I am wealthier now without all that money than I was then. This is me summarizing what he was essentially getting at. He has his family now. He has his life under control now, right? He couldn't even trust people back then. He was paranoid, right?
With good reason.
Yeah. Who wants to live like that?
You sacrifice it all.
He sacrificed everything. And, what does that tell you, right? There's been countless people who are, influential figures who go to their deathbeds and they almost all say the same thing. It was all for naught. I had everything and I pleasured myself to death, right? There was nothing I couldn't have. And now here I am, and pleasure, it doesn't do anything. I get no dopamine. There is no pleasure that's good enough to save me now. And I'm like, man, that is a hard realization to come to at the end of life. And that's why I'm like, this is why you want your kid to brush the guardrails of failure, because that's what happens when you go over the cliff and it's too late, right? You never learned because you couldn't learn it from listening. You couldn't learn it from experience without the full experience. And so now you experience the full thing and it's too late.
And Dave talks about that a lot, especially on his TikTok. It's like, what does all this matter?
Yeah.
If you're not the person you need to be, whatever that means,
Yeah.
Because it looks different for everyone. But we push so far, so hard for something, and we ignore everything else, and then you get it, and it means nothing. The pleasure you thought you were going to get, happiness, the end of the road, the goal.
Yeah.
It's like, why did I do this?
Yeah.
And I'm all for trying new things, leave no stone unturned.
Yeah.
But you have to have a purpose. It has to all be purpose driven.
Purpose driven. That's it.
You know what I mean? Like, if that pro card is everything to you and you're willing to sacrifice your family, your friends, and everything that matters, and you get the glory that comes with it, you're a rare occasion. Congrats. I hope it's worth it.
That's what Dave Chappelle said in Sit Down with, this guy has since passed, in the studio with whatever it was called. And he said his father told him, he said, all right, so you want to be a stand-up comedian? That's what you want to do. Here's my only advice. Name your price. And when it gets to be more than that, get out. Hence, Africa. That's what he said. That's when Dave Chappelle left the Chappelle show, went off to Africa. And everybody's like, what the hell? What's going on? He named his price. And when it got too far beyond that, he's like, I'm out. And that applies to everything. You better name your price. But the most important part about that is knowing what that is. A lot of times we go into things, we never even think about, when do I say this is enough? Where's my line? Some people have no line. I have a cousin who's going to miss his child's entire upbringing because he's in prison for 20, 25 years. Because what? He made a lot of poor choices, and he understands it. Now, I talked to him while he was in prison. I've had video call with him, and it sucks. You don't want to wait till you get to that point and it's too late. So, like even now I struggle because I'm like, what is the point of me doing what I'm doing? Right? What's the whole bodybuilding thing about? I know what it is for me, and this is where the struggle is. And this ties into my philosophy and my upbringing. I grew up in a Baptist church. I do not go to a Baptist church anymore.
Hard hitters, man.
Yes. And that is not a knock at Baptists. They're, it is what it is. But I do still hold Judeo-Christian values, which is why I say I struggle, because I'm sitting here talking to you and I'm like, the bad words are slipping out. Oh. My purpose is to convey what it is I want my life to be, right? How I want to live my life, so people see that you can do all these things and still be this, still have a purpose-driven life that includes all these other things. And the guy that comes to mind who to me sets the example is Jordan Hutchinson, him and his wife. And he's an open pro. I will not be surprised if he goes to the O this year. This dude looks insane right now. And he sets the bar for me. Now, I told you before, I live my life very much centered on trying to embody Proverbs, the sayings of King Lemuel and King Solomon and all these, wise people. Not because I think I'll ever be wise. Only a fool will call himself wise. But because I want, if there's nothing anybody gets from me, it's this message. Whatever it takes, get wisdom. It will save you from all the crap we talked about up to this point. It is worth more than anything, because when you don't have it, what's the alternative? Foolishness, right? The fool is the one who ends up in prison because he can't control himself. The fool is the one who ends up broke because he was impulsive and careless with his money. The fool is the one who you pull over and thinks he's going to argue his way out of truth. Well, my truth is I didn't do what you say I did. Okay, we don't live in a world where truth is on a spectrum, right? And some things are gray, don't get me wrong, but it's black and white. The door isn't both open and closed. You might want it to be so you can do whatever it is you want in that moment. But the reality is, there is a right and a wrong. And you can't discern those things without wisdom. So when you go out and you make all these poor choices because you ignored that call to wisdom, well, that's the result. And it applies to bodybuilding. I know there have been guys who've died for this, for plastic trophies and small checks. And I don't think that's wise. You leave behind a kid, you leave behind a family. Even if you had none of those, you leave behind your entire life, right? If you die at 25, if you live to be 100, that's a quarter of the way through life. You barely made it. So yeah, for me, it's like, there's one of the verses that comes to mind all the time is there's a way that seems right to a man, but in the end leads to his own destruction. How many times have you heard people say, well, I did this because I felt like, or this made me feel, some emotional based answer. And don't get me wrong, I don't discount emotions. They're significant and we have them for a reason. Sometimes they'll save your life. But at the end of the day, you need to make wise choices to avoid some of the pitfalls that come with emotional responses. And so there are many times, and I won't name anybody because there are people that are close to me that I hear them say something. I'm like, I know you feel like this is the right thing, but you're in the pool, and we all see the shark in there with you that you don't see. And you think you're doing the right thing. It feels good. The water's warmer over here. Bro, there's an 8-foot shark underneath you that you can't even see. And we're trying to tell you, listen to us, please, before it's too late. People can't do that. I felt like this relationship, and everybody's like, red flags, bro. You don't see the red flags? This bitch is crazy. It's like, we've all been there. I've done it. Dude.
Guilty.
I got stories that I shouldn't have.
It's made you the man you are today.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. Like we've gone through life and going off that, like we're all doing this for the first time.
Yeah.
Your parents were parents for the first time, and then they were parents of a teenager for the first time, parents of adults for the first time. Like we're all learning, and we're all doing it together at the same time. It's a beautiful thing when you think about it.
That's a good point.
And it's a beautiful way to approach people when you're like, hey, I understand where you're coming from. I understand you feel. I would just ask you to heed this advice.
Yeah.
And that's all we can do for people. Throw it out there, hope that it sticks and lands and they apply it.
Yeah.
I think it's when it becomes an issue when you're like, I know better than you, this is what it is. Because that person, you're going to lose that person, All we can do is, hey, I've been there, I've done that, I've got the T-shirt. I don't wear it.
Yeah.
You should just understand where I'm coming from in hopes that this betters you and maybe it gets you to your goal faster because you're going to avoid a lot of the same things I did.
Dude, you made 2 solid points there. The first one, I do my best. I am cognizant of this all the time. If somebody is trying to argue you into something, they're wasting their time. Because two things are going to happen. They're going to walk away and somebody else is going to argue them out of it, or they're going to argue themselves out of it. It's just a matter of time. They have to come to the realization themselves, convince themselves of what it is they want to believe or accept or whatever. That's why I have a hard time sometimes with, people trying to beat people over the head with something. And this is it. This is okay. It may be the truth. That may be it. That may be what it is. But you sitting here, forcing,
getting blue in the face.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this spoonful of protein powder, and you're gonna get it. You're gonna eat it. It's like, dude, you're gonna turn around. They're gonna throw that shit right up.
Yeah, just spit it out.
Yeah. So, the second point is one that, again, this goes back to Chris. What was it specifically you said that it echoed as soon as you said it? It was like I heard his voice. Trying to convince people of things, and then dang it, I lost it. You got me too.
Living life for the first time all together.
Yeah.
Not forcing things, understanding.
It'll come back to me. But yeah, there's so much, dude. You hit something that was
Now you got to play it back.
Yeah.
But walk us. So given all this, you're purpose driven. You have a goal in mind. You have the Pittsburgh Expo this weekend. Yeah. What is your goal? How did you prepare for that? What's your mindset going in there?
For this show in particular?
Yeah.
To make a statement. It's my second pro show. First pro show that I've actually had a real, off season for. Did have some setbacks with the knee issue, but gotten past that. Just to go make a statement. The guys that are going to be competing in this show are top. They're Terrence Ruffin, Jose, Matt, Grego, and some others. These are Olympians, and they look phenomenal. So it's not to go in there to get a certain placing. It's not to go in there to just have fun. I'm gonna have fun. The fan in me is probably as excited, if not more so, to just be there because the lineup for open. I'm like I know I got VIP tickets, but I might just stay backstage.
Yeah.
When they come in, hey man, some goofy stuff. But it's all of those things. But as a competitor, it's to make a statement. Like, hey, I'm here. And my plan is to come in like an assassin and start, shanking some people that didn't see me coming. They're not, I don't want, I don't post a whole lot of my actual timely updates because I don't want people to see until it's too late.
Well, I'll tell you what, I thought you were huge. And then you walked through I saw you actually, you walked past the door. I'm like, that's him.
Yeah.
He blocked the entire door and then the door was back.
It's the jacket, man.
Yeah.
This is all gasp. Gasp is the reason I look better than I do. Yeah, that's the primary goal. And the preparation for this, I mean, there was a number of things. I won Universe. Immediately the next morning, we go out for some photos with Mr. Mannion, J.M. Mannion. And the dude's awesome. He gave us a lot of good advice. And one of the things he said was, yeah, you doing Pittsburgh? That was not on my radar at all.
Oh.
Yeah, I was like, I just need to think about what's my first pro show going to be and where can I go to do well and, still have good competition and all this stuff. And as soon as he said that, I was like, yes, sir.
Actually,
like,
yeah.
Now that you mention it. And so I was like, all right, it's done. I'm doing it. I don't care that it's going to be a crazy lineup. That was the origin of this show for me. Now, I had known about the show. I just didn't have it as a planned show at the time. And so I did that. I made that decision, talked to my coach, and we planned out some other shows. We can do New York Pro after and then another one. But the preparation to get here was just like any other, in terms of mindset, where you're just going in and you're like, all right, this is the plan. These are the things I need to work on. And you're always aiming, I don't want to say aiming for perfection, because what does that look like? And that's usually
It's subjective because it's judged. So So it's
Yeah.
like your perfection may not be what they're looking for, and then you get that feedback, and you're like, "Damn, okay."
Yeah. So, and even in terms of execution, like I knew I needed to bring up posing. And so, those are the things I was looking at. But I also recognized that reality is nobody is a freaking cyborg or robot and is nailing everything every day, 365 days. Life doesn't allow that. And if you are a rare, rare exception. You don't get to always choose when the injury's coming, when you're going to get sick, when some unexpected food shortage occurs or something crazy, right? COVID, right? Who was planning for that? So those things obviously mean you can't be perfect when those external factors influence the very thing that you're trying to be perfect at. You don't get to control those things. So I try to say more of nailing one day at a time, and then responding to when things don't go as planned. And the Navy is really good at teaching you that you should plan for your plans not to go as planned. And that's what I try to do. Now, that being said, I think when you try to chase perfection, you usually do more of a disservice to yourself because it's unattainable. And so then all you're doing is, it's like when I was doing cybersecurity intel, you were never ahead. You're always either playing catch up. It was a thankless job, right? You're always playing catch up, patching stuff, trying to figure out who did this, attribution, all of these things. And it's kind of like that. If you're trying to chase perfection, you're going to get very frustrated very quickly, and you're just going to beat yourself up all the time. And that's even worse than the alternative. So we did all that, and planned for this show. I knew early on the lineup was going to be kind of what it is. You could see it coming, and I don't want to say too much. I'm still ironing out. I have a problem. Again, this comes with the obsessiveness. My posing routine, I kept changing it. Like, it's not good enough. Oh, no, I should do this. I can't change the song, change the music. So, I'm like 4 weeks out changing shit up again. I'm like, no, I got to stop. I got to just pick something. And so we've got the poses down. Now I just got to make sure everything's synced with timing and all that. So, yeah, that's the plan.
It's like a dance routine on stage.
Yeah, I try not to, I want to be a little more masculine. So it's more like, performing katas or forms from martial arts. That's what it's like.
There it is. We'll go with that. Because I would always see like posing coaches, and like before I was in the industry, I'm like, really? A posing coach?
Don't get me started on the posing coach thing, man.
But it's important. If you can't pose,
oh yeah,
you lose. Like, you do all this work and you can't showcase it.
Yeah,
it's like you buy the Corvette, you shine the Corvette, and then you park it in the garage and not in the driveway. It's like, well, you got the thing, but you're not showing the thing.
Well, it's even worse than that. It's like the kid who gets the Hellcat but can't drive.
Yeah.
Or the kid who gets the Mustang 5.0 and can't drive.
We see all those videos.
We see those videos all the time. And the dude's, in the telephone pole
every time.
Yeah. You're like, damn, dude, you saved up all this money, or you went into all this debt, and you got this nice, fast car, and nobody sees any of that because you can't drive, for crap.
That's an interesting way to put it.
That's posing. You did all this work, you got in this awesome shape, and you get out there and you ruin it all because you can't present it. So nobody sees it. They just see, this was the complaint about Paul Dillette back in the day. The dude should have been Mr. Olympia at some point, but his posing was atrocious. And that's what everybody would say. Now, at the time looking at him, all I could see was, this dude's a freak. This is insane. Tiny waist, taller than everybody else. Shoulders look like basketballs. He's got calves. A tall black guy with calves. What is this? Who made this? But when you become more involved and you recognize, oh, he's not hitting this pose right. Ah, dang, this is what's getting him. So, it is a big deal. But the posing coach thing, I think there are a handful of posing coaches who are legit and really good. Christopher, his last name starts with a B. It's slipped my mind. I think he's one of them. There's some kids, I say kids because they're really young, who are really good. And they just naturally know how to do it, and they can teach it. But by and large, everybody becomes a posing coach. And I know a guy who coaches, and he would probably tout himself as a posing coach. And I'm like,
don't do that.
Don't. This is the exact opposite of what I would tell somebody to do. Now, what do I know? Right? I'm new, right? I'm a newbie. But I've worked with enough people, and shout out to Jose Raymond for helping me with my posing, and Chris Tuttle. But there's some things that we all know. Fundamentally, this is how you set this up. And whatever the hell it is you're doing, ain't it. So, yeah, posing. Yeah, there's some snakes out there, dude.
Well, it's in every industry, man. You have instructors who teach self-defense and martial arts, and you're like, what are you doing? You ever heard of McDojo Life?
Yes.
I had him on the podcast. Dude, so his episode airs a couple weeks after yours.
Okay.
And I'm so excited because I would follow this page and see these people who are like, I'm like, dude, you're teaching that to someone, you're going to get someone hurt or killed.
Yeah.
And he exposes them.
Yeah.
Dude, like during the episode, he brings out a pack of cease and desist. He's like, look at these. Oh, boom. He just throws them away. He's like, not worried about them. I'm like, dude. But, you know, that you have to call it how it is, you know?
Yeah.
What is your goals for the next like 5 years? Where do you see yourself, you know, especially in the bodybuilding world? What's something you expect to happen? What's something you're planning for, or something you're pushing for?
I think next year, Olympia qualification.
Ooh.
I'm not one to boast about tomorrow. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, but you still plan. And so that's my plan. That's for bodybuilding. That's the next big one. I want to do this as long as I can. I've got no reason to think I can't do this for another few years at least. Some of the competitors I know who are still very active are in their 40s doing it. So I could do that as long as my body allows me to. My health is pretty freaking good. Just went and saw a cardiologist last week. He's like, yeah, you don't need to see me, bro.
That's good news.
And then he added me on Instagram. So it's like, yes.
The next step is become a cop after.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So
that's a Coleman reference.
Yep.
If I seen that dude coming on a call, I'd be like, whatever it is I did. Please leave me. Like, whatever you need me to do.
Yeah. I used to make my wife, when she was my girlfriend, come over to the apartment, and we watched that video over and over. Ronnie Coleman, the Unbelievable. Dude, I could quote that entire thing. I even remember, he's on the treadmill. He's on the treadmill doing his steps at like midnight, watching South Park, and there's a sign that he printed out that says, you always do what you always did. You always get what you always got. Some stuff like
He's
this.
also good at voices.
That dude, I got to meet him by happen chance. Like this is, my friend worked at the time. This is a long time ago. He was still active, so he was still a Ronnie Coleman. Everybody pictures. He was in Norfolk to support Linda Murray's show at the Scope, and I knew this. And I'm at my apartment, or my brother and one of our friends were all together, and our buddy hits us up from Outback. He worked at Outback, and he's like, "Hey, there's this really big black guy here." It's like, okay. He's like,
awkward.
He's like, no, he's like huge. It's like, how big? He's like, dude, this guy is like. I said, is that Ronnie? Ronnie at Outback? Sounds like Ronnie. That's a Ronnie thing to do. Outback Steakhouse, go get steak and some a steak and potato, just like you eat in the squad car, right? Except chicken, I guess it was. And so I'm like, all right. He said, we're closing, but I'll leave it open for you guys. I said, we're on our way.
What late night snack can we get here?
So sure as shit, it's Ronnie and his training partner sitting at the booth. And we're sitting, I'm looking over. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to buy. I'm like, they're like, dude, you love this shit. So I was like, all right. So I go over there and he is Ronnie Coleman as Ronnie Coleman gets. And he's eating. And I'm telling you, his forearms were so big. He's sitting there. It's like washing a crab. He didn't even have to move to the food. He was just shoveling it to his mouth. And he had a mouthful of food. And I'm like, hey, man, I'm a big fan. Oh, yes. I don't want to bug you. You're eating. Oh, no. Again, he's got like a whole steak in his mouth. He's like, are you good, man? You good? You're all right? I was like, oh, so that was my first Ronnie Coleman experience. I was like, this dude is
typical Ronnie Coleman.
Our dad took us backstage when Marcus Raoul was in town at the Hampton Coliseum, I believe it was, and he was guest posing. And Marcus probably had a bigger effect than Ronnie did on me. Now, Marcus may not remember this. He probably thought I was special needs because I could not stop smiling the whole time. Like, our dad takes us and he's like, hey, can you show my kids, bicep or something? And he did. And I'm like,
not saying nothing.
Nothing. No words came out. He's like, is this the Joker? Who is this? What is wrong? This is how the Joker was born, Why so serious? It's like I couldn't stop because his bicep, not his arm, just the bicep alone.
Just pull out a tape.
Dude, it was like the size of my face. And I'm like, this is magical. I want to be like this.
Dude, and look where it's taking. I saw a picture of you and Cutler. Like you're coming across all the people who kind of paved the way for bodybuilding.
Yeah.
That's like, I think that's like the coolest thing.
Oh yeah. I met Jay for the first time when I did his show. That was my first show, period. And I did the Jay Cutler Classic in Richmond, Virginia. And I won overall for Classic. And I got to talk to him and get pictures and the signed belt and all that stuff. So I knew he was coming before they announced it. DMV Iron, the owner, Leo, best gyms, shout out to, everybody knows this, the best gyms in all of Maryland and Virginia, DMV Iron, absolutely insane, which is why Jay was there. So I go by because they're having their grand opening in Woodbridge. He had told me in advance that Jay was going to be there. So I was like, yeah, dude, I'll be there. It's 2 hours away, but I'll be there. And so Jay remembered me and I talked to him for a little bit, but I tried to rush it because I don't want to be that guy. There's a long line of people waiting to talk to this dude. So he's awesome. Awesome businessman, awesome human. So yeah, I got to, it's weird. It's weird.
I got to meet Jocko. He was signing books and stuff. And dude, we hit a conference. I could talk to anybody, man. I think it translates to people. Like, people will sit there and talk with me. And there's a line behind us, and he signed a book, and I'm talking. I'm like, this is my chance to breach his mind, try to breach Jocko's mind, right?
Yeah.
He probably don't remember this, but we're sitting there talking, and the person he's with, his assistant or whatever, is like trying to interject every time, but the convo's flowing. Then finally, I realize I'm like, oh man, I'm like doing everyone. So I'm like, all right, man, nice to meet you, and I walk away. I'm like, man, I want to get back in line. Talking with, and that's the thing, dude, and talking with people, you can learn so much, how they operate. And that's why I love doing this. Why do you do what you do? How do you do what you do? And I can talk about that with anyone, man. I've told this story multiple times in a bar. By the end of the conversation, dude's like, yeah, I'm quitting my job tomorrow, bro. I'm like, whoa, hold on. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's more to life, and you want it. You want it. You have to make a plan.
Yeah.
But don't just quit your job.
Yeah.
And then he uses a quote I gave him. He's like, nah. No parachute. I'm like, oh, damn, dude.
That's funny.
I can't even say anything about that.
Dude, I flew on P8s when I first got in. That was my first squadron. And I better not, I don't want to get into this. We have these storage bin areas for where the chutes are supposed to go, but they're empty because when Boeing designed the aircraft, they poorly planned. So there literally are no chutes. And if you bail out, right, when they tested it, every time the dummy would go out, you get decapitated or cut in half by the horizontal stabilizer on the back.
Cool.
So they're like, yep, no chutes. Sorry, guys, we fudged that one up. So it's like, well, you're going down with the aircraft, or you're going to do it Batman Returns and Bane hijacking that aircraft, I guess everybody's just gonna get sucked out. But
figure it out on the way down.
Figure it out.
As you know, as we conclude, we talked about a lot of stuff, a lot of good stuff. What's one message you want people to take away after listening to this episode?
I think it goes back to what I said earlier. Doesn't matter what you're doing with your life, whether it's military, just being a father or a mother or a parent, a friend. They say a friend loves at all times and a brother is born for adversity. Or being a bodybuilder. You need to get wisdom at all costs. Understand what that means. Knowledge without wisdom, you hear it all the time, knowledge is power. No, it's not. Knowledge is just information. Knowledge is knowledge. Wisdom is power. Dr. Charles Lefevre taught me that, one of my comms professors. What good does it do for you to know something and not be able to apply it, not be able to comprehend it? I can know a lot of things. There's a lot of providers, doctors, nurses, so on, who went to med school, went to nursing school, went to PA school. And when they see their patient, they miss things. They know these things, but they don't necessarily have the wisdom to say, and maybe it goes beyond that. I don't want to shortchange any of those folks. I'll give you an example. If I tell a patient or a client, you're on Mycardis, telmisartan, it's a blood pressure medication, and I don't tell them not to take aspirin, and they're taking aspirin, their Mycardis won't work. Knowing things is useless if you can't apply them. If you don't have wisdom, you don't have discernment, knowledge is useless. So, the same thing applies with awareness. I can know a lot of things, but be completely unaware that I am doing all the things that I shouldn't be doing, even though I know the answer to these things. So get wisdom. It encompasses a lot of things, but get wisdom.
That's good. Yeah. What good is a boatload of guns if you don't know how to shoot?
Exactly.
That's a good one. Where can people follow you online if they want to kind of, you got your pro card, you're competing in Pittsburgh. Now people are like, I want to follow Story's journey. Where can people follow you?
I'm mostly active on Instagram, so dom.carter87. I'm eventually going to build up my YouTube channel. It's just a matter of, making the time to do it. But yeah, Instagram is primarily it.
Dom.carter87. I'm assuming that's the year you were born.
That's it. Yep. Now everybody knows.
Typical dad.
Oh yeah, exactly.
As long as you don't got selfies with just like your head and everything else. No, bro, I appreciate you guys coming down and giving me the time of day. Especially you're competing this weekend, so your mind's in that. So coming here, sharing your wisdom with me, with everyone, dude, it's very appreciated. I encourage you guys, follow him, follow his story. Dude, this episode's been really good. Follow the Relentless Project everywhere. It's Relentless PRJCT. We have conversations like this with people from different industries, different fields. And if you notice, a lot of the people talk about the same things in a different way, right? The wisdom is applied differently. So maybe you like what he had to say, but you need to apply it a different way. That's wisdom. So I appreciate you, Dom, for coming on.
Appreciate the opportunity, brother.
This is the one with Dom Carter, and we're out. Later.
Out.